13-year-old boy dies, returns with a shocking warning, about 2030. My name is Ethan, and before that day, my life was a perfectly curated digital universe. I was 13 years old, and my world revolved around the glowing screens of my devices. My hands moved with a dancer's precision across controllers, my mind fluent in the complex languages of virtual worlds. I knew the lore of every fantasy realm, the stats of every character, the strategies to conquer every quest. Outside the screen, my life was comfortable, predictable. School was a place where I mostly survived, extracting just enough information to pass, reserving my true intellectual energy for intricate game puzzles. Friends were a loose collection of avatars and voice chat usernames. Sunlight was something that glared on my monitor. My parents were good people. My mom, a kind, gentle soul, would often try to pull me into conversations about the world outside, about nature, about books. She believed in God in a quiet, comforting way, something about love and prayer, but it felt abstract, like a story that had nothing to do with the urgent, high-stakes battles unfolding on my screen. My dad was a brilliant software engineer, a man who built real-world digital architecture. He understood my fascination with technology, but he also worried about my detachment. He'd try to coax me outdoors, suggesting hikes or bike rides, but my true wilderness was made of pixels. For me, real life was a low-resolution simulation, dull and slow, compared to the vibrant, immediate feedback loop of my games. I knew about climate change, about global conflicts, about poverty, because the news would occasionally flash across a corner of my screen. But they were like background noise, far-off sirens that didn't penetrate the walls of my virtual fortress. I thought the real world was something for adults to worry about, a problem for future patches. I believed that technology, the very thing that consumed my life, would eventually solve all its problems, just like a software update. I was certain that humanity was always progressing, always innovating, always finding a way around its challenges. The idea that things could genuinely get worse, that the world could actually fail, felt like a game-over screen that was simply impossible for humanity to reach. I was a child of the digital age, cocooned in its infinite possibilities, oblivious to its hidden dangers. I had no idea that my carefully constructed virtual reality was about to be shattered, and that the ultimate game over wasn't for a character on a screen, but for a world that was rapidly losing its connection to what was real. I was about to be shown a terrifying glimpse of a future that felt alarmingly close, a future where the screens would finally go dark. The day it happened began with a familiar hum, the comforting whir of my gaming PC. It was a Saturday, the perfect day for an all-out gaming marathon. My parents were out. The house was quiet, filled only with the click of my mouse and the triumphant sounds of virtual battles. I was deep in a particularly intense boss fight, my focus absolute, my heart pounding with adrenaline, when a strange, cold tingling began in my left arm. It wasn't pain, not at first. Just a creeping numbness, like my arm was falling asleep. I tried to shake it off, dismissing it as a weird side effect of gripping the mouse too hard. But the numbness spread, climbing up my arm, a chilling tendril reaching for my chest. A dull ache began to bloom, quickly escalating into a crushing pressure. It felt like an invisible hand was squeezing my heart, tightening its grip, squeezing the very breath from my lungs. My vision blurred, the vibrant colors of the game world dissolving into static. The triumphant music twisted into a grotesque, discordant shriek. Panic, cold and raw, flooded my system. My hands, which had been so precise moments before, now fumbled, useless. I tried to call out for help, to reach for my phone, but my voice was a strangled gasp, and my arm felt like lead. I slumped forward, my head hitting the desk with a soft thud. The pressure in my chest intensified, a monstrous, suffocating weight. My last conscious thought, a desperate plea, was not for my parents, not for a doctor, but a raw, childlike whisper, for the one I only vaguely knew from stories. God, help me. And then total, absolute, silent darkness. The next sensation was one of impossible lightness, a feeling of being unburdened, untethered. The crushing pain, the suffocating pressure, the frantic fear it, all simply ceased to exist. I was floating. I was hovering near the ceiling of my room, looking down. Below me, my desk chair was overturned. My gaming PC glowed faintly, forgotten. And on the floor, a small, still figure lay in a crumpled heap, my own body, pale and motionless. I watched, detached and serene, as if observing a scene from a movie. I saw the faint, blue glow of the screen reflecting on my lifeless face. I felt a pang of sadness, not for myself, but for the boy whose game had finally ended, whose quest had been interrupted. I could hear, faintly, the distant wail of sirens. It was the background noise of my world, now signifying the end of it. The scene below me began to dim, the colors draining away. The sounds of the world faded into a profound and unsettling silence. The detachment I felt shattered, replaced by a growing, creeping dread. I was no longer in my room. I was somewhere else, a place that was vast, empty, and utterly devoid of warmth. It was a realm of cold, sterile gray, a desolate landscape that seemed to stretch into infinite nothingness. The gray expanse was not empty. It was filled with shadows, whispers, and a profound, pervasive coldness that seeped into my very being. These were not the demons of Sunday school stories with horns and pitchforks. They were far more subtle, far more insidious. They were the manifestations of my own spiritual detachment, given form in this desolate reality. A towering figure, made of swirling, indistinct gray mist, appeared before me. It resonated with a profound sense of indifference, a cosmic apathy. "You sought comfort in screens," its voice whispered, a dry, rustling sound like dead leaves. "You sought distraction from reality. Here, there is no distraction, only the consequence of your choice." Other shadows, smaller but equally chilling, swirled around me. They were the countless hours I had spent in virtual worlds, the thousands of lives I had lived through pixels, the endless notifications that had pulled me away from genuine connection. They whispered my own thoughts back to me, twisted into accusations. "You thought the real world was boring. You thought the problems were not yours. You thought others would solve them. Here, there are no others. Only you and the emptiness you created." Each whisper was a shard of ice in my soul, a devastating reminder of my complacency. My belief that technology would solve everything felt like a cruel joke in this place where all technology was meaningless. My confident detachment from the world's problems was now a crushing, suffocating weight. The terror that bloomed within me was not the fear of pain. It was the terror of ultimate isolation, the crushing realization that I had chosen to live a life separate from true reality. And now that separation was absolute and eternal, there was no escape. There was no restart button. There was no patch. In that moment of soul-crushing despair, stripped of my games, my screens, my very identity as a digital native, all my carefully constructed walls of distraction crumbled. All that remained was a raw, terrified spark of consciousness, a small, lost boy utterly alone in a universe that had become as indifferent as I had been. My knowledge of games, of logic, of strategy, it was all utterly useless. All that remained was a single, desperate, broken plea, a name I had barely whispered in my life, a name that was now my last, desperate hope. "Jesus, please, I don't want to be alone." My cry was a fragile, trembling whisper in the infinite, cold void. Yet, it was heard. It was as if that single, raw, honest plea ripped a hole in the fabric of the gray desolation. In the far distance, a single point of light appeared. It was infinitesimally small, yet it shone with a warmth that I could feel even across the vast, terrifying expanse. The shadowy accusers recoiled, their forms dissolving like mist in the sun. The cold, sterile gray did not flee from the light. It was absorbed by it, transformed, infused with a vibrant, living energy. The light expanded, not like an explosion, but like a sunrise, its colors bleeding into the void, turning the bleak expanse into a landscape of unimaginable beauty. The oppressive silence was replaced by a sound, a low, resonant hum that was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. It was a music that felt like a billion lullabies and 1,000 triumphant anthems all at once. I was no longer in the gray void. I was floating in an ocean of this conscious, living light. It was pure, unconditional love. A love that knew every hour I had wasted on screens, every time I had ignored a call for help, every moment of my profound detachment. It knew all of this, and it held me anyway, without judgment, without condemnation, with a tenderness that made my broken heart sing. It was the love of a parent who adores their child, not for being perfect, but simply for being. From the heart of this infinite, loving presence, a form began to coalesce. He was not an old man with a beard, not a character from a Sunday school story. He was a being of pure, radiant light, vast and powerful, yet whose eyes held an intimacy that made me feel utterly safe, utterly known. His smile was a homecoming. My soul knew him instantly, with a certainty that made all my games seem like meaningless toys. It was Jesus. He knelt down so his face, which was made of pure liquid light, was level with mine. He spoke, not with his mouth, but with a direct flow of understanding into my mind, a voice that was pure love and infinite compassion. "Daniel," he said, and my name in his voice felt like the most precious word in the universe. "I heard you. You are not alone. You are home. I've been waiting for you to call." All my fear, all my shame, all the crushing weight of my isolation, dissolved like salt in water. I was safe. I was loved. I was home. "Daniel," Jesus said, his presence a constant, warm embrace, his smile holding all the joy of creation. "You have seen the consequence of distraction. Now, let us look at the choices that made the ripples in your short life." My short, 13-year-old life began to unfold around us, not like a recording, but as if we were stepping into the moments themselves. But I was seeing them through his eyes, feeling them from every perspective. We were in my living room. I was 10 years old, absorbed in a new video game, my headphones on. My mom had come in, her voice gentle, asking if I could help her carry some groceries in from the car. I remembered muttering a quick, "Just a minute," which turned into 15. In the memory, Jesus let me feel what my mom felt. I felt her quiet sigh, the slight ache in her back as she carried the heavy bags herself, the small flicker of loneliness that her son was so distant. It wasn't anger. It was a subtle, unaddressed need, a small gray ripple I had created with my inattention. The scene changed. We were at school. A new boy, a shy kid named Alex, had joined our class. He sat alone at lunch, struggling to open his milk carton. I remembered seeing him, feeling a fleeting thought of helping, but then turning back to my friends, not wanting to look uncool. Now, Jesus let me feel what Alex felt. I felt his profound embarrassment, the lump in his throat, the small, sharp pain of being invisible. I saw how my small choice had reinforced his feeling of loneliness, a dark, prickly ripple. Jesus didn't scold me. He simply held my hand, and the love pouring from him was a gentle, healing sorrow. "You see, little one," he communicated, "the ripples are real. Every choice, every non-choice, creates a ripple. The world is a vast ocean, and you are always throwing a stone." We saw other scenes. The time I helped an old lady pick up spilled oranges at the grocery store, and I felt the surge of gratitude and simple human connection she experienced. This was a brilliant, golden ripple, expanding far beyond that small moment. The time I spent hours creating an elaborate virtual castle in a game, and Jesus showed me that while there was no negative ripple, there was also no positive one. It was a beautiful, but contained energy, a closed circuit of creation that never reached the wider ocean. The lesson was devastatingly simple. My life wasn't about right or wrong answers in a book. It was about connection. It was about whether I was creating love or letting isolation take root. The greatest sorrow was not in my sins, but in the missed opportunities, the golden ripples I had failed to make. When the life review ended, I was left with a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of everything, and a deep regret for my past attachment. But the regret was held in the vast, comforting embrace of Jesus' love. "Now, Daniel," he said, and the urgency in his voice made my soul tremble. "You have seen the ripples. You understand their power. Now I must show you the tsunami that is coming, the storm your world is ignoring. The radiant landscape of love we were in faded, not into darkness, but into a stark, almost clinical vision of Earth. It was not the familiar, vibrant planet I knew. It was shrouded in a thick gray haze, a suffocating blanket that distorted everything. I saw cities, still bustling, but the light that should have streamed from them was dim, almost extinguished. The natural world was weeping. Forests were charred, oceans choked with a black, oily film, once vibrant ecosystems reduced to desolate gray. But it was not just the physical world. I saw human beings, millions of them, but they were not truly interacting. They were surrounded by invisible, flickering screens, their faces illuminated by artificial light, their ears filled with artificial sound. They were talking, but not listening. They were seeing, but not truly looking. They were touching, but not truly connecting. Their hearts, which Jesus had shown me were meant to be burning with golden light, were dull, like embers dying under a thick ash. Their attention was fragmented, their focus stolen by endless streams of trivial information. This is what happens when the ripples of distraction become a tidal wave. Jesus communicated, his voice a whisper of pure grief. This is the world of 2030, a world of deep, profound, spiritual winter. They have built the technology to connect, but they have used it to disconnect. They have built the tools to create, but they have used them to consume. They have built a beautiful planet, but they have turned their eyes away from its suffering, convinced that a patch will come, a solution from someone else. He pointed to the gray haze. This is not just pollution, Daniel. This is the accumulated weight of ungiven love. This is the consequence of 1,000,000 choices of indifference, of 1 billion distractions chosen over connection. They are living in a self-made desert, crying out for rain, but refusing to dig for water. They are dying of thirst, surrounded by an ocean of my love, because they have forgotten how to drink. The vision was terrifying because it was so familiar. It was like looking into a funhouse mirror of my own life, magnified 1,000,000 times. It was not a judgment. It was a heartbroken warning. The vision of 2030, a world drowning in its own gray indifference, was burned into my soul. The sorrow radiating from Jesus was a palpable ache in my own being. They are so busy looking at screens, they cannot see the world around them, he communicated, his voice heavy with grief. They are so distracted by virtual realities, they cannot see the true reality of their planet or their neighbor's pain. They have mistaken busyness for purpose, entertainment for joy, and knowledge for wisdom. And time, my little one, is running out. The tipping point is almost upon them. The year 2030 is not a prophecy of doom, but a threshold. It is the moment when the accumulated weight of their indifference will make the path to true awakening incredibly difficult, almost impossible, unless they choose to turn. The consequences of their choices are cascading, and soon, the momentum of their distraction will be too great to overcome without a global shift of heart. He turned to me, his eyes burning with an urgent, divine plea that went straight to the core of my being. "This is why you must go back, Daniel," he said, his voice resonating with an authority that shook my very essence. "You must go back and be my warning. You must be my alarm clock. You must wake them up from their comfortable sleep. You are a child of their time, a native of their digital world. They will listen to you." A part of me, the part that had just found ultimate peace and love, cried out in desperate protest. "I don't want to go back. It's so gray there." "They won't listen. They'll laugh at me. They'll just go back to their games." Jesus' embrace tightened, his love a fierce, protective fire. I know, little warrior. The path I ask you to walk is hard, but my love is not a soft blanket to hide under. It is a blazing fire to be shared. You have felt my love. Now you must go and be my love. You have seen the truth. Now you must be my truth. They will not all listen. Many will dismiss you. But if you wake even one heart, if you create one golden ripple, it is worth every moment of your struggle. His command was absolute, his purpose unwavering. Go and tell them, he commanded, his voice filling my entire being. Tell them to turn off their screens, to look up, to see each other. Tell them to choose connection over distraction, compassion over comfort, real love over virtual likes. Tell them to stop waiting for someone else to solve the problems of their world. Tell them they are the solution. Tell them the game is real, and the stakes are higher than they can possibly imagine. Tell them to wake up before it is too late. Go, Daniel. Be my voice. Be my alarm. This is your mission. The weight of the command was immense, a burden too great for a 13-year-old boy. But the love in his eyes, the profound sorrow for his sleeping children, compelled me. My own heart broke for the gray world I had just seen. I had to help him. I had to try. My soul, no longer a child's, gave its full consent. Okay, I whispered, the word avow. I will go. The moment I agreed, the world of light and love, the presence of Jesus, vanished. I was not gently guided back. I was hurled, thrown, slammed back into the broken, aching prison of my physical body. It was a brutal, instantaneous re-entry, a physical torment that made the agony of the stroke itself feel like a distant memory. A violent jolt, a convulsive gasp, tore through my small chest, and then a searing pain erupted in my head, a deep, aching cold in my bones. I was back. My eyelids, heavy as stone shutters, fluttered open. The first thing I saw was the blurry, tear-streaked face of my mother, leaning over me, her hands stroking my forehead. The first thing I heard was her voice, a choked, joyous sob. "He's awake. Michael, he's awake. Oh, thank you, God, thank you." The next few days were a strange, disorienting dream of the ICU, of beeping machines and hushed, astonished conversations between doctors and nurses who looked at my charts, then at me, and then just shook their heads in professional bewilderment. Clinical death for at least 12 minutes, one doctor told my parents, his voice strained with disbelief. The brain damage should be catastrophic. For him to be conscious, let alone lucid, there is no medical precedent. It's truly a miracle. They were scientists looking at a shattered compass, unable to comprehend the journey I had just completed. My father sat by my bed for hours, his face a landscape of profound relief and deep, unsettling confusion. He would hold my hand, his practical, capable mind struggling to grasp the impossible. He was a man who believed in cause and effect, and the effect of me being alive and lucid had no discernible cause that fit his worldview. When I was finally able to speak more than a few weak, raspy words, my parents were sitting with me, their eyes fixed on my face. I looked at them, my heart full of the urgent, burning message I carried, a fire that no amount of pain or skepticism could extinguish. "Mom? Dad?" I whispered, my voice weak and raspy, the words feeling clumsy and inadequate. "I saw Jesus. He said, you have to wake up. He said 2030 is coming." My mother's eyes filled with fresh tears, this time of pure, unadulterated joy. "Oh, my sweet boy," she whispered, stroking my hair. "Of course you did. He was with you the whole time. He saved you." My father's reaction was different. He forced a smile, but his eyes were full of a deep, loving concern, a concern that clearly thought I was disoriented or hallucinating. That's great, son," he said, patting my arm. "You had a very powerful dream. The brain can do amazing things when it's been through trauma." I looked at them, my two loving parents, and I knew how hard my mission was going to be. My mother heard my words as a confirmation of her gentle faith, a beautiful, comforting narrative. My father heard them as a symptom of my trauma, a psychological coping mechanism. Neither of them could yet comprehend the terrifying, urgent fire behind them. Neither of them understood that I hadn't just had a nice dream about a kind storyteller. I had been given a direct, urgent command from a heartbroken king, a command about the very future of the world. My physical recovery was long and arduous. I had to relearn simple movements, my body feeling alien and unresponsive at times. But through it all, the spiritual reality I had experienced was far more vivid than any physical pain. The world I returned to seemed fundamentally altered. The drone of background TV, the endless scrolling of phones, the casual indifference to a news report about a distant disaster, these were no longer just noise. They were the gray haze I had seen, the subtle, insidious distractions that were lulling humanity to sleep. My old life, my video games, my superhero cards, they all felt like hollow, meaningless things. How could I lose myself in a virtual world when I knew the real world was hurtling towards a cliff and Jesus was weeping over a sleeping humanity? I tried to share my message, my urgent warning. I told my friends at school, "We have to wake up. Jesus is real, and he's sad because we're all distracted, and 2030 is coming." They would just stare at me with blank, bewildered faces, and then ask if I wanted to play a new game. They thought I was weird or perhaps still a little off from being sick. My words, so profound to me, were just strange noises to them. I tried to tell my Sunday school teacher, trying to explain that being good wasn't enough, that the fire of God's love was meant to burn through their comfortable routines. She listened with a patient, patronizing smile. "That's a very passionate thought, Daniel," she said. "But let's focus on our lesson about kindness. Remember, God loves a cheerful giver." She was taking the fire I was trying to share and putting it in a neat, safe storybook box, taming it into something palatable, something that wouldn't disrupt her orderly classroom. My parents struggled. My mother, my great ally, worried incessantly. She saw my intensity, my newfound seriousness, and she wanted her happy, carefree boy back. She believed my vision but was afraid of its implications, afraid of what it would mean for my childhood, my future. My father, in his own loving and practical way, tried to fix me. He got me into therapy, hoping a professional could help me process my trauma. He encouraged me to play sports, to reconnect with my old friends, to get back to being a normal kid. "You need to focus on what's real, son," he would say, handing me a basketball. But I couldn't go back. You cannot unsee what I had seen. You cannot unfeel the sorrow of God for his sleeping children. My greatest challenge and my greatest comfort was the profound change within my own heart. The selfish, thoughtless boy was gone. In his place was a boy with an almost painful capacity for empathy, a desperate hunger to make golden ripples. I found myself drawn to the lonely kids, the ones who were being made fun of, the quiet ones others overlooked. I would sit with them, listen to them, not out of a sense of duty, but because I could literally feel their pain, and I knew that sitting with them, truly seeing them, was making a golden ripple, a tiny act of resistance against the gray haze. My life became a quiet, often misunderstood, mission of awakening. I was a fire starter. But the only way I knew how to start fires was one small, warm act at a time, one quiet conversation, one shared moment of genuine presence. I am a man now, with lines of wisdom etched around my eyes, and the quiet strength of a purpose forged in the fire of revelation. The intensity of that 13-year-old boy has mellowed, but the conviction has only deepened. I have learned over the years that you cannot force someone to wake up. You can only try to be a light in their room, hoping it stirs them from their slumber. You can only be the alarm clock, ringing softly, persistently, lovingly. My mother, before she passed, told me that my faith had deepened hers, had taught her that love was not just a feeling, but a burning fire that demanded action. My father, before his passing, never fully embraced the spiritual explanation for what happened to me, but he saw the man it made me into. "I don't know what you saw, Daniel," he told me in his final days, "but whatever it was, it made you the most awake person I know." And that, my son, is the greatest proof I ever saw of anything truly divine. My life is not what I would have imagined. I am not a famous preacher. I am a community organizer, working with young people in underserved neighborhoods. My work is my ministry, my mission. I help them turn off their screens and turn towards each other, towards their neighborhoods, towards the urgent, tangible problems of their world. I teach them to plant gardens in abandoned lots, to clean up neglected parks, to volunteer at local shelters. My sermons are not in words, but in action. My church is the community garden, the shared meal, the eyes meeting across a table, the hands working together for a common purpose. And now, I must speak to you directly from the heart of that terrifying vision and the profound love that accompanied it. I am not here to tell you a comforting story. I am here to share a terrifying, urgent, and profoundly loving message. The Jesus you may believe in, the gentle shepherd, the wise teacher, the historical figure, is also a living, breathing, cosmic fire who is heartbroken by our comfortable, lukewarm, spiritual sleep. He is not asking if you are a good person. He is not asking if you go to church. He is asking, with a divine and sorrowful urgency, are you truly alive? Are you awake? Is the fire of my love burning in your heart? Or have you contained it in a safe, respectable religious box, neatly separated from the urgency of the world? The terror I saw in his eyes was not for the fate of sinners, but for the fate of the sedated, the distracted, the good people who are missing the entire point of their existence. The great tragedy is not a soul lost to hell, but a soul that passed through this world as a ghost, never truly waking up to the divine, fiery, dangerous, and glorious adventure of a life, lived in and for the love of God. The year 2030 is not just a date on a calendar, it is a spiritual warning. It is the approaching threshold when our collective indifference, our relentless distraction, our comfortable slumber will solidify into a reality that is almost impossible to break free from. The gray haze I saw is not just an image. It is the spiritual consequence of our inaction. So I ask you, as I ask myself every day, are you awake? Is there a fire in your heart? Are you truly living? Truly seeing? Truly connecting? Or are you comfortably asleep, distracting yourself while the world burns? Please, for the love of God, wake up. Turn off the noise. Look up. Look into the eyes of your neighbor. Feel the sun on your face. Plant a seed of love. The house is on fire, and the only thing that can save us is the very fire of love we have been so afraid to let in. The time to wake up is now.